Ever feel like someone just handed you the how to run a company playbook,
Yeah.
but the instructions seem kind of off, like maybe even counterproductive to what made your business special in the first place?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today, this whole idea of founder mode. We've got Paul Graham's latest essay as our guide. And trust me, this is one of those deep dives that might just change how you think about leadership.
It's a fascinating challenge to the status quo, that's for sure. We often hear about the need for founders to step back as their companies grow, but what if that conventional wisdom is missing something crucial?
Right. Graham kicks things off with a pretty compelling example. Brian Chesky at Airbnb. As the company exploded in popularity, everyone told him to follow the standard playbook, hire a bunch of execs, delegate everything, and try not to mess things up. But here's the thing. That advice totally backfired. It's like someone telling you the best way to keep a plant alive is to stop watering it.
It's a trap so many founders fall into. They achieve success by being deeply involved, by understanding every single little nuance of their product and customer. Then suddenly, they're told that to scale, they need to detach from all of that.
It's like saying, congrats on building this incredible thing, now step aside and let someone else manage it. You'd almost think their instincts were a liability, not the superpower that got them there.
That's precisely what Graham challenges. He argues that instead of this forced evolution from founder to manager, there's a way to retain that founder's touch, that direct engagement even as the company grows. He calls this founder mode.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We've got founder mode on one side. What's on the other? Is it just like being a regular CEO?
Graham calls it manager mode. And it's less about a specific title and more about a mindset. It's the belief that as a company scales, you need to prioritize delegation, structure, treating departments like separate units.
Sounds efficient on paper. What's the problem?
The problem is that it can create this disconnect between the company's core vision, the founder's why, and the day-to-day reality of how the company operates. It can stifle innovation and create a company that's good at following procedures, but maybe not so great at adapting or coming up with the next big thing.
So if manager mode is all about stepping back, what does it actually look like to lead in founder mode when you've got a growing company?
Well, Graham uses Steve Jobs as a prime example. Jobs was notorious for wanting to be involved in every little detail at Apple, even as the company grew into this behemoth.
Yeah, I'm picturing those old photos of the first Macintosh team.
Yeah.
Crammed into a tiny office. Hard to imagine Jobs recreating that vibe with thousands of employees.
Exactly. But he found ways to maintain that connection, to keep his finger on the pulse. For example, he insisted on personally selecting the 100 most important people at Apple for an annual retreat, regardless of their position on the org chart.
He bypassed that whole chain of command thing.
Yeah.
It's got to be chaos for a typical HR department.
Absolutely. And that's precisely Graham's point. Founder mode isn't about scaling in the traditional sense. It's about scaling the impact of the founder's vision, their direct energy. Jobs recognized that even if he couldn't personally manage every detail, he could create these direct lines of communication, these moments of shared understanding that would ripple outward.
So it's less about micromanaging and more about making sure that the company's decisions, its products, everything it does,
Yeah.
still feels like it's coming from that original spark.
Precisely. And what's interesting is that this approach, while effective, often runs counter to the advice founders are given, leading to what Graham calls gaslighting.
Okay, gaslight is kind of a strong word. Break that down for me. How does that play out in the business world?
Imagine you're a founder who's always trusted their gut. You see a problem, maybe it's a product decision or a customer service issue, and your instinct is to dive in, get your hands dirty, find a solution. But as the company grows, you're told to delegate, to trust the process, that you're being too emotional or not thinking big enough.
It's like their experience building the company from the ground up is suddenly discounted. Like it no longer holds value.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly damaging to a founder's confidence and ultimately to the company itself. They start to doubt their instincts, the very things that made them successful in the first place.
So how do we reconcile these two seemingly opposing forces? How do we create space for this founder mode of leadership without sacrificing the structure and delegation that a growing company needs?
That's the million-dollar question. And what makes this whole conversation so compelling is that we don't have a clear-cut answer yet. We're only just starting to recognize the limitations of traditional management models, especially when it comes to companies built on innovation and disruption.
It's like we've been so focused on teaching people to be good managers that we've forgotten to ask what makes founders exceptional leaders in the first place. It's almost like there's this assumption that
Yeah.
That the very things that make a founder successful early on, the passion, the hands-on approach, the willingness to break the mold, those become liabilities as a company like matures.
Yeah, as if there's only one right way to lead. And it involves like spreadsheets and org charts and very few like actual conversations with the people on the front lines.
Which seems kind of crazy when you think about it. Like if you're building something new, something that's never been done before, wouldn't you want the person with the original vision, the one who like dreamed up the whole thing, to be closely involved?
Absolutely. And what's exciting is that we're starting to see a shift in thinking around this. It's not about founder mode versus manager mode. It's about recognizing that the most effective leaders, they find ways to blend both approaches, to create structures that allow for both autonomy and alignment, where founders can scale their impact without sacrificing their instincts.
So for all the founders out there listening, feeling that pressure to conform to the grown-up way of running a company, maybe like resist that urge a little.
Yeah, don't assume you need to abandon what got you here. Instead, think about how you can create systems and structures that allow you to stay connected to the heart of your business even as it grows. Maybe that's delegating more of the day-to-day tasks, but reserving time for those like critical product decisions
No.
or finding ways to like interact directly with customers to stay close to their needs and pain points.
It's about like finding that sweet spot
Mhm.
between being hands-on and giving your team the freedom to thrive. And for those of you who work with founders, maybe give them a little grace when they do things differently. There might be a method to what looks like madness.
Exactly. Ask questions, understand the why behind their decisions. You might be surprised at the insights you gain and the innovation it unlocks.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left wondering, what if this idea of founder mode isn't just about tech startups? What if it applies to like any field, where someone is trying to build something new, something impactful, something that challenges the status quo?
That's a powerful thought. Where else do you see passionate individuals pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and maybe even getting gaslighted along the way? What can we learn from their experiences? And how can we create environments where their unique brand of leadership can flourish?
So much to think about, and maybe even more to do. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep asking those big questions. And never be afraid to challenge conventional wisdom.